"He's pathetic," someone whispered as Kael passed through the pack gathering. He caught the words. His wolf hearing was perfectly intact, after all, but he kept his shoulders hunched, his steps careful, as if every movement pained him. He'd gotten very good at this over the past 3 years. "I can't believe he's still alpha," another voice muttered. "My grandmother has more strength than him." Kael's wolf snarled inside his mind, demanding he turn and show them exactly how strong he was. But he pushed the impulse down, as he always did. This was necessary. This was the only way to know the truth. The pack house loomed before him, a massive structure of stone and timber that had stood for 200 years. His ancestors had built it with their bare hands, had ruled from here with strength and honor. Now those same halls whispered with doubt about him. Inside, the council was already assembled. 5 wolves, the most powerful families in the Blackwood pack besides his own. They sat around the ancient oak table, and Kael could smell their anticipation. They thought this would be the meeting where they finally convinced him to step down. Alpha Kael, Elder Marius greeted him, voice dripping with false courtesy. "Thank you for joining us." Kael lowered himself carefully into his chair at the head of the table, making sure to wince slightly. "Of course. What did you need to discuss?" "Your mating ceremony," Marius said bluntly. "It's been 3 years since you came of age. You've rejected every suitable female we've presented." The pack grows, concerned. "Oh, so this was the angle today. I haven't found the right match," Kael said quietly. He let his voice shake just a little, as if the pressure of leadership was too much for him. "The right match." Counselor Vera leaned forward, her sharp eyes assessing him. "Alpha, you need a strong Luna. Someone who can help you lead. Someone who can compensate for your condition." His condition. That's what they called it now. 3 years ago, Kael had faced a rogue attack that should have killed him. He'd survived, but according to the pack healer, who was in Kael's confidence, the injuries had left him weakened. His wolf was there, but diminished. His strength was a fraction of what it should be. All lies, of course. Carefully constructed lies. "I'm doing my best," Kael said, and he genuinely sounded exhausted. That part wasn't hard to fake. Pretending to be weak was its own kind of exhausting. "Your best isn't enough." Marius stood, his considerable bulk casting a shadow across the table. "We've been patient, Alpha, but the pack needs strength. We need a Luna who can provide what you cannot." "I understand," Kael said softly. I'll try harder." The council exchanged glances. Kael could read their thoughts as clearly as if they'd spoken them aloud. He's giving up. He knows he can't do this. "We've taken the liberty," Vera said, her tone gentler now, as if speaking to a child, "of arranging for a new potential mate to arrive. She comes highly recommended. Strong bloodline, excellent training. She'll arrive tomorrow." Kael's wolf perked up with interest, but he kept his expression neutral, even slightly defeated. "What's her name?" "Raven Ashworth," Counselor Jean supplied, sliding a folder across the table. "From the Silvercrest pack. Her alpha speaks very highly of her abilities." Kael opened the folder, scanning the contents. The photograph showed a striking woman with dark hair and intense eyes. Her credentials were impressive: warrior training, strategic planning, even some diplomatic experience. On paper, she was perfect, which meant she was exactly the type of wolf who would see his weakness as an opportunity. "She arrives tomorrow at sundown," Marius said. "We expect you to give her a fair chance, Alpha." It wasn't a request. Kael nodded slowly, closing the folder. "Of course, I'll meet with her." After the council dismissed him in his own pack house, Kael made his way to his private quarters. He kept up the act until the door closed behind him, until he was certain no one was watching. Then he straightened to his full height, rolled his shoulders back, and let his wolf surge forward just enough to feel the power thrumming through his veins. "Another one," his wolf growled in his mind. "Another test. The last one, maybe," Kael murmured aloud, walking to the window that overlooked the pack lands. The territory stretched out before him, forests and fields he'd protected since he was barely more than a boy. "If she's like the others, if she tries to use my weakness against me." He didn't finish the thought. He didn't need to. He'd rejected 7 potential mates over the past 3 years. 7 strong, accomplished women who had looked at his condition with calculation in their eyes, who had seen not a mate, but a puppet, a weakened alpha they could control. The 8th had been the worst. Celine had actually tried to poison him, to make him weaker still. thinking she could then present herself as the pack savior when she discovered the plot. Kael had known from the first dose. His wolf had sensed the foreign substance immediately, but he'd let it play out, had documented everything, and then he'd exiled her with irrefutable proof of her treachery. The council didn't know about that. They thought he'd rejected Celine for being too ambitious. They had no idea how close they'd come to having a traitor as their Luna. Raven Ashworth, Kael said, testing the name. Let's see what you're really made of. The next evening, Kael stood at the pack house entrance, assuming his careful posture once again. Hunched shoulders, tentative stance, eyes that didn't quite meet anyone's directly. The perfect picture of a broken alpha. The car that pulled up was sleek and expensive, and when the door opened, Raven Ashworth stepped out with the grace of a predator. She was more striking in person than in her photograph. Tall, with an athletic build that spoke of years of training. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid, and when her eyes met his, Kael felt a jolt he hadn't expected. Silver. Her eyes were pure silver, and they assessed him with an intensity that made his wolf sit up and take notice. Alpha Kael, she said, her voice smooth and controlled. She approached with confident strides. No hesitation, no uncertainty. When she was close enough, she extended her hand. I'm Raven Ashworth. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Kael took her hand carefully, making sure his grip was weaker than it should be. But the moment their skin touched, something electric passed between them. Raven's eyes widened fractionally, the only sign of surprise she showed, and she held the contact for a moment longer than necessary. Ms. Ashworth, Kael said quietly, welcome to Blackwood Pack. Please, call me Raven. She released his hand, but her gaze never left his face. I've heard much about your pack, and about you. I'm sure you have, Kael said, and he let a hint of bitterness creep into his voice. It wasn't hard. The bitterness was real, just directed at different targets than she might assume. Elder Marius appeared at Kael's elbow, all smiles and welcoming gestures. Raven, we're so pleased you could join us. Let me show you to your quarters. I'm sure you'll find everything to your liking. As Marius led Raven away, she glanced back over her shoulder. Her silver eyes locked with Kael's for a brief moment, and he couldn't read the expression on her face. Curious, maybe, or calculating. Time would tell which. Raven's quarters were luxurious, as expected for a potential Luna. A suite of rooms in the east wing with a view of the forest, decorated in rich fabrics and dark wood. But she barely noticed the surroundings as she set down her bags. That touch, that spark when she'd taken the alpha's hand. She'd felt mate bonds before, had witnessed her brother find his mate, had seen the way they'd been drawn to each other like magnets. But she'd never experienced it herself until 30 seconds ago, when Kael's hand had clasped hers. No, she whispered to her wolf. Absolutely not. Her wolf whined in protest, already yearning to go back to him, to be close to him again. He's exactly what they said he was, Raven continued, pacing the room. Weak. Broken. The council made it very clear. They need me to be strong enough for both of us. But that didn't match what her instincts were screaming at her. When she'd touched him, when she'd looked into his eyes, she hadn't sensed weakness. She'd sensed something else. Something her conscious mind couldn't quite name. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Come in. A young woman entered, maybe 19 or 20, with warm brown eyes and an easy smile. Hi, I'm Maya. The council asked me to help you get settled and show you around. Thank you, Raven said, genuinely grateful. I appreciate that. Of course, Maya's enthusiasm was infectious. She moved to help Raven unpack, chattering pleasantly about the pack. You're going to love it here. The territory is beautiful, and most of the pack is really welcoming. Well, except for the council. They can be a bit intense. I noticed, Raven said dryly. Maya laughed. They mean well. They're just worried about Alpha Kael. We all are. Raven kept her tone casual. What's he like? As a leader, I mean. Maya's expression turned thoughtful. He's kind, patient. He actually listens when people bring him problems, and he tries to find solutions that work for everyone. She paused, folding one of Raven's shirts with careful precision. But he's not strong anymore. Not like an alpha should be. The attack 3 years ago. Yeah. Maya's voice dropped. It was bad. Rogues ambushed him when he was doing a perimeter check. By the time the pack warriors got there, he'd killed most of them, but... She shook her head. The pack healer said it was a miracle he survived at all. but the injuries left him diminished. Raven processed this information, filing it away. That must be difficult for him. It is. You can see it in his eyes sometimes. Like he knows he's not enough. Maya met Raven's gaze directly. That's why the council brought you here. They think he needs a strong Luna to make up for what he lacks. The words were said without malice, just frank honesty. But they made Raven's wolf snarl with unexpected protectiveness. Our mate doesn't lack anything, her wolf insisted. Raven pushed the thought away. I'll do my best to help however I can. Maya smiled, seeming satisfied with this answer. Great. Oh, and there's a packed dinner tonight. Nothing fancy, just a chance for everyone to meet you properly. Alpha Kael will be there. The dining hall was massive, with long tables that could seat hundreds. Tonight, it was about half full, pack members gathering for the evening meal. The atmosphere was casual, familial, with laughter and conversation filling the space. Kael was already seated at the head table when Raven arrived, flanked by the council members. He looked up as she entered, and for just a moment, their eyes met across the room. That spark again. That pull. Raven forced herself to look away first, making her way to the head table where Maya guided her to a seat directly across from Kael. Everyone. Elder Marius stood, his voice carrying across the hall. I'd like to introduce Raven Ashworth, visiting us from the Silvercrest Pack. She's here as a potential mate for our alpha. A ripple of interest moved through the crowd. Raven could feel dozens of eyes on her, assessing, judging, hoping. Welcome, Raven, the pack chorused the traditional greeting. Thank you for having me, Raven replied, standing briefly to acknowledge them before retaking her seat. Kael was watching her with those careful, guarded eyes. Up close, she could see details she'd missed before. The strong line of his jaw, the breadth of his shoulders, despite his hunched posture. The way his hands, scarred and calloused, rested on the table with a control that seemed at odds with his supposed weakness. How was your journey? He asked quietly, his voice nearly lost in the ambient noise. Smooth, thank you. Raven accepted a plate of food from a passing server. Your territory is beautiful. The forests especially. They're old growth, Kael said, and for a moment, something like pride flickered in his expression before he dampened it. Some of the trees are over 500 years old. Your pack must have protected them well. We try. He picked at his food, eating slowly, as if even that small action required effort. But Raven's wolf wasn't convinced. There was something off about his movements, something too controlled, too deliberate. Like an actor playing a part. He's pretending, her wolf whispered. Raven nearly choked on her water. What? He's not weak. He's pretending to be weak. It was absurd. Impossible. Why would an alpha pretend to be weaker than he was? What possible purpose could that serve? But now that her wolf had planted the seed, Raven couldn't unsee it. The way Kael's eyes tracked every movement in the room with perfect clarity. The way his breathing was steady and controlled, not labored like someone with damaged lungs should be. The way his hands never trembled, never showed uncertainty, despite his hunched posture suggesting fragility. Is something wrong? Kael asked, and Raven realized she'd been staring. No, she said quickly. Just tired from the journey. He nodded, accepting this, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Or was she imagining it? Counselor Vera leaned across the table, her voice overly bright. Raven, we thought tomorrow you might join our warriors for morning training. It would be good for the pack to see your skills. A test, then. They wanted to see what she could do. Of course, Raven agreed. I'd be happy to. Excellent. Marius beamed. Alpha Kael, you'll observe, of course. Kael inclined his head slightly. If Raven doesn't mind. Not at all, Raven said, meeting his gaze directly. I'd be honored to have the Alpha watch. This time, she was certain, there was definitely amusement in his eyes. Quickly hidden, but there nonetheless. The meal continued, conversation flowing around them. The pack members were friendly, welcoming, but Raven noticed an undercurrent of worry whenever they looked at Kael. They cared about him, genuinely, but they saw him as fragile. Something to be protected rather than someone who protected them. If Raven's suspicions were correct, if Kael was truly pretending to be weak, then he'd convinced his entire pack of the lie. That took incredible skill and dedication. But why? As the meal wound down and pack members began to disperse, Kael stood carefully. Raven, would you walk with me? There's something I'd like to show you. The council members exchanged pleased glances, clearly interpreting this as a good sign. I'd like that, Raven said, rising to join him. They walked in silence through the pack house and out into the cool night air. Kael led her along a stone path that wound through the gardens, his pace slow and measured. Anyone watching would see a weakened alpha taking a gentle stroll. But Raven was beginning to see past the performance. "You're wondering why I asked you here," Kael said finally, when they were far enough from the pack house that no one could overhear. "I am," Raven admitted. Kael stopped at a stone bench overlooking a small pond. Moonlight rippled across the water's surface. He sat down carefully, and after a moment, Raven joined him. "The council thinks I need a strong Luna to compensate for my weakness," Kael said quietly. "They're probably right." Raven studied his profile in the moonlight. "And what do you think?" "I think." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I think appearances can be deceiving." Her heart skipped. "Is that so?" Kael turned to look at her fully, and in the moonlight, his eyes seemed to glow with an inner fire that had nothing to do with weakness. "Tell me, Raven, why did you really come here?" The question caught her off guard. "The council extended an invitation." "The council has extended many invitations," Kael interrupted gently. "7 women before you, all strong, all qualified, all suitable potential Lunas. So I'll ask again, why did you come?" Raven's wolf urged her to tell the truth, to trust him. But her rational mind held back. She barely knew this man, regardless of what her instincts claimed. "I came because my pack thought it would be a good alliance," she said finally. "And because I was curious." "Curious about what?" "About you." The admission slipped out before she could stop it. "About an alpha who survived an attack that should have killed him. About a leader who kept his position despite being diminished." "Despite being weak, you mean?" "I didn't say that." "But you thought it." Kael's tone held no accusation, just simple statement of fact. Raven met his gaze steadily. "Actually, I'm not sure I believe you're weak at all." The words hung in the air between them. Kael's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition. "That's a dangerous thing to say," he said softly. "If you're wrong, and if I'm right, then you're far more perceptive than anyone gives you credit for." He stood, offering her his hand with that same careful, controlled movement. "Come, I'll walk you back to your quarters." Raven took his hand, and that spark flared between them again. "Mate bond," her wolf sang. "Ours." As they walked back through the gardens in comfortable silence, Raven's mind raced. She'd come here expecting to meet a broken alpha, someone who needed her strength to prop him up. Instead, she'd found a mystery wrapped in deception, and a mate bond she hadn't been looking for. At the door to her quarters, Kael released her hand with obvious reluctance. "Good night, Raven," he said quietly. "I look forward to watching you train tomorrow." "Good night, Alpha." She watched him walk away, his steps careful and measured until he rounded the corner and disappeared from sight. Then she slipped inside her room and moved to the window. From this angle, she could just see the path Kael had taken. And as she watched, a figure emerged from the shadows. Kael, but different. His posture was straight and strong, his movements fluid and powerful as he ran toward the forest at a speed that no weakened wolf could match. Raven's breath caught. She'd been right. The question was, what was she going to do about it? Morning came too early. Raven had spent half the night watching the forest, waiting to see if Kael would return, but she'd eventually fallen asleep without spotting him again. Now, as dawn broke across the territory, she dressed in her training clothes and made her way to the practice grounds. The warrior training ground was impressive, a large open space with various equipment, obstacle courses, and sparring rings. Already, a crowd had gathered. Pack warriors stretching and preparing, but also many others who'd come to watch the outsider prove herself. Maya appeared at Raven's side, offering a water bottle. "Nervous?" "Should I be?" "Probably not. You're from Silvercrest, right? Your warriors are supposed to be incredible." Maya lowered her voice conspiratorially. "But ours are pretty good too. Especially Finn. He's the head warrior. He's not going to go easy on you." "I wouldn't want him to," Raven said honestly. A commotion at the edge of the grounds announced Kael's arrival. He was in his wheelchair today, being pushed by one of the pack members. Raven's eyes narrowed. Last night she'd seen him run with perfect strength, and now he was in a wheelchair? The deception ran deeper than she'd thought. Kael was positioned at the edge of the training ground, where he'd have a clear view of everything. When his eyes found Raven, he nodded once, a simple acknowledgement that somehow felt weighted with meaning. "All right, everyone, A massive man with a scarred face and arms like tree trunks stepped into the center ring. This had to be Finn. Today we're honored to have Raven Ashworth from Silvercrest joining us. We're going to see what she's made of. He grinned, all teeth and challenge. Who wants first shot? 3 hands went up immediately. Finn pointed to a lean woman with quick eyes. Jade, you're up. Raven stepped into the ring, rolling her shoulders to loosen them. Jade moved like water, her stance perfect, her eyes calculating. This wasn't going to be an easy match. Standard rules, Finn announced. First to yield or submit loses. Keep it clean. Jade didn't waste time. She came in fast, testing Raven's defenses with quick jabs and probing strikes. Raven defended smoothly, reading Jade's patterns, waiting for her opening. There, Jade favored her right side, left herself just slightly open when she committed to a punch. Raven waited for the next one, then moved. She slipped inside Jade's guard, hooked her leg, and took her down with a controlled throw that left Jade on her back with Raven's forearm across her throat. Yield, Jade gasped, and Raven immediately released her, offering a hand up. Nice throw, Jade said, accepting the hand with a grin. Didn't even see it coming. You're fast, Raven replied honestly. Almost had me twice. The crowd murmured appreciatively. From the corner of her eye, Raven could see Kael watching intently. If she didn't know better, she'd think he was leaning forward slightly, engaged despite his supposed frailty. Who's next? Finn called. 2 more matches. 2 more wins for Raven, though the last one was close. A young man with incredible speed who nearly caught her with a spinning kick that would have ended the match. The Pack Warriors were genuinely skilled, and Raven found herself enjoying the challenge. All right, Finn said, stepping into the ring himself. Let's see how you handle someone your own size. The crowd went quiet. This was the real test. Finn was at least 6'4" and built like a mountain. His reputation as head warrior was well earned. Raven could tell from his stance alone. This wasn't going to be like the others. They circled each other, Finn moving with surprising grace for his size. Heard good things about Silvercrest warriors, he said conversationally. Hope you don't disappoint. I'll do my best, Raven replied, tracking his movements. Finn struck like lightning, no warning, just explosive power. Raven barely blocked in time, the impact sending shockwaves up her arms. He pressed the advantage, forcing her back with a combination of strikes that would have overwhelmed a lesser fighter. But Raven had been training since she could walk. She weathered the storm, defended and deflected, waiting for him to overcommit. When he did, a powerful right hook that left his midsection exposed. She slipped inside and delivered 3 quick strikes to his ribs. Finn grunted but didn't slow. If anything, he grinned wider. The match went on, both of them trading blows, neither able to gain a decisive advantage. Raven's muscles burned, her breathing came heavy, but she didn't let up. This was what she trained for, lived for, the pure challenge of matching skill against skill. Finally, Finn made a mistake. He went for a grapple, trying to use his weight advantage. But Raven had been expecting it. She used his momentum against him, twisting at the last second and bringing him down with a throw that should have been impossible given their size difference. They hit the ground hard, and Raven transitioned immediately to a submission hold, her arm locked around Finn's throat. For 3 seconds, they stayed frozen. Then Finn tapped twice on the ground, yield. Raven released him immediately, rolling away and offering him a hand up. Finn took it, laughing breathlessly. Damn, he said, respect clear in his voice. They weren't kidding about Silvercrest. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Pack members pressed forward, congratulating Raven, asking about her techniques, welcoming her with genuine warmth. But Raven's attention was drawn to Kael. While everyone else celebrated, he sat quietly in his wheelchair, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. And then, just for a moment, so brief she almost missed it, he smiled. Not the careful, measured smile of a weakened alpha, but a genuine smile of, what? Pride? Recognition? The moment passed, and his careful mask was back in place. But Raven had seen it. Later, after she'd showered and changed, Maya found her in the pack house library. You were amazing. Maya gushed. I've never seen anyone beat Finn in straight combat. Usually, it takes 2 or 3 warriors working together. He's very skilled, Raven said diplomatically. I got lucky. That wasn't luck. Maya settled into the chair across from Raven. That was years of training and natural talent. The pack is already talking about how perfect you'd be as Luna. Raven's chest tightened. They barely know me. They know you're strong. They know you could protect the pack. Maya's expression turned serious. That's what they need. What Alpha Kael needs. What if, Raven said carefully, Alpha Kael doesn't need protecting? What if he's stronger than everyone thinks? Maya laughed, but there was sadness in it. I wish that were true, but we've all seen how much he struggles. How hard it is for him to even walk sometimes. The wheelchair isn't for show, Raven. He really needs it. Except Raven had seen him run through the forest with perfect strength just last night. Maybe, she said noncommittally. A knock on the library door interrupted them. One of the pack members poked his head in. Raven, Alpha Kael would like to see you in his office. If you have time. Raven's wolf perked up immediately, eager to see their mate again. Of course, I'll head there now. Maya gave her an encouraging smile. Good luck. Kael's office was on the second floor, a spacious room lined with bookshelves and dominated by a large oak desk. When Raven entered, he was alone, seated behind the desk with papers spread before him. You wanted to see me, Alpha? Raven. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Please sit, and call me Kael. If we're to consider this mating seriously, formality seems unnecessary. Raven sat, hyper-aware of his presence, of that invisible pull between them. All right, Kael, you were impressive this morning, he said, his tone neutral. Finn said you're one of the best warriors he's faced. He's being generous. He nearly had me twice. But he didn't. Kael leaned back in his chair, studying her. The council is very pleased. They think you're exactly what the pack needs. And what do you think? The question hung between them. Kael's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. That same intensity she'd glimpsed last night. I think, he said slowly, that you're not what I expected. Because I can fight. Because you see things others don't. He leaned forward, resting his forearms on the desk. Last night, you said you weren't sure you believed I was weak. What? Raven's heart pounded. This was dangerous territory. If she was wrong, if he truly was diminished and she accused him of deception, she'd insult him deeply. But her instincts, her wolf, everything in her was screaming that she was right. Because, she said carefully, I've seen weakness. Real weakness. And you don't have it. I can barely walk without pain, Kael said, and his voice held that careful quality again, as if reciting lines from a script. The attack left me. I saw you last night, Raven interrupted. After you walked me to my quarters. I watched from my window. You ran into the forest, Kael. No pain, no hesitation, no weakness. You ran like a wolf in his prime. Silence fell, heavy and charged. Kael's expression had gone completely blank, unreadable. For a long moment, he simply stared at her. Then, slowly he stood. But this time, there was no careful movement, no measured steps. He rose with fluid grace, with the power and confidence of an alpha at full strength. He came around the desk, and Raven had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. No one has ever seen through it before, he said quietly. Not in 3 years. Raven's breath caught. Why? Why pretend to be weak? Kael moved to the window, looking out over his territory. His posture was different now, shoulders back, spine straight. Every inch the powerful alpha he truly was. 3 years ago, there was an attack, he said. Rogues, as the pack believes. But they weren't just rogues. They were trained, coordinated, specifically targeting me. Someone paid them, someone close to me, someone I trusted. A betrayal, Raven breathed. Yes. Kael's hands clenched into fists. I survived, obviously. Killed most of them. But I realized something as I lay there bleeding. I didn't know who had sent them. It could have been anyone. Council member, pack warrior, even someone in my own family. So you pretended the attack had weakened you. To see who would try to take advantage. He turned back to face her. A weakened alpha is vulnerable. If someone wanted my position, wanted to control the pack, they'd make their move. And I'd be watching. Have they? Raven asked. Made a move. Kael's expression darkened. Small things. Subtle things. Suggestions that I should step down. Let someone stronger lead. Recommendations for mates who would conveniently have controlling personalities. Council members positioning their own children for key roles. He shook his head. Nothing concrete enough to act on. Not yet. And the 7 women before me? All strong. All dominant. All looking at me like I was something to be managed rather than mated. His gray eyes locked with hers. You're the first one who saw through the deception. Raven stood, moving closer to him. What happens now? Do you trust me? I don't know, Kael admitted. My wolf says yes. He recognized you the moment we touched. Mate bond, clear and undeniable. I felt it too, Raven whispered. But feeling a mate bond doesn't mean you're trustworthy. It doesn't mean you won't use my supposed weakness against me. He searched her face. So, I need to know, Raven. Why are you really here? What do you want? It was a fair question. She'd come here thinking she'd be matched with a weakened alpha who needed her strength. Now she knew the truth, or part of it at least. She could expose him, could tell the council what she'd discovered. They'd probably reward her handsomely for the information. Or she could do something else entirely. I want, Raven said slowly, to understand why my mate thought he had to lie to his entire pack for 3 years. I want to help you find whoever tried to kill you. And I want. She paused, gathering courage. I want to know who you really are, Kael. Not the weak alpha you pretend to be, and not just the strong one hiding underneath. Who are you? For the first time since she'd arrived, Kael truly smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less burdened. That, he said, is an excellent question. And if you stay, if you help me, maybe we can figure it out together. I'll stay, Raven said without hesitation. But on one condition, which is, you teach me how to be as good an actor as you are. Because if we're going to catch whoever betrayed you, I'm going to need to play my part perfectly. Kael laughed, a rich, genuine sound that made her wolf preen. Deal. He extended his hand, and when she took it, that mate bond flared between them, strong and true. Fair warning though, Kael said, still holding her hand. This won't be easy. Whoever wants me dead is patient and clever. We might be in this for the long haul. Good, Raven said. I've never been one for easy. Over the next week, Raven discovered that Kael was an even better actor than she'd thought. Every morning, he appeared at breakfast in his wheelchair, shoulders hunched, moving carefully as if every small action pained him. He listened to the council's suggestions with apparent gratitude, accepted their condescension with patience that must have cost him dearly. And every night, after the pack house had settled into sleep, he met Raven in a secret training room deep beneath the pack house. Again, Kael said, wiping sweat from his brow. They'd been sparring for an hour, and Raven was beginning to understand just how much strength he'd been hiding. She came at him with a combination strike, but he deflected easily, caught her wrist, and in one smooth motion had her pinned against the wall. Dead, he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. Raven's wolf whined with pleasure at the proximity, at his strength, at the very maleness of him. But she forced herself to focus, analyzing what she'd done wrong. I telegraphed the second strike, she said. You did. He released her, stepping back to give her space. But you're getting better. Last week I would have had you in half the time. They'd been training together every night, Kael teaching her to see the subtle tells that might indicate deception, while also helping her understand the complex web of pack politics. In return, Raven had been watching the council, the pack members, anyone who might be the traitor Kael suspected. I've been thinking about the council, Raven said, accepting the water bottle Kael offered. Marius, in particular. What about him? He's the most vocal about you stepping down. And 3 times this week, I've seen him in private conversations with Counselor Vera. They stop talking whenever anyone gets close. Kael's expression turned thoughtful. Marius has always been ambitious, but he's also been loyal to my family for 30 years. It would be a betrayal of everything he's claimed to stand for. Sometimes that's exactly why people betray, Raven said quietly. Because they've been loyal so long, they start to feel entitled to more. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Raven looked away, old wounds aching. My father's beta. He served for 20 years, was practically family. Then one day he decided he'd earned the alpha position more than my brother had. He tried to poison my brother during the succession ceremony. What happened to him? My brother survived. The beta didn't. She met Kael's eyes. Loyalty can be genuine for years and then evaporate in a moment of opportunity. Don't discount Marius just because he's been loyal before. Kael nodded slowly. I'll watch him more carefully. In the meantime, we need to make sure everyone believes you're committed to being my Luna. What did you have in mind? A slight smile tugged at his lips. The council has been pushing for us to participate in the Moon Festival next week. It's a pack bonding celebration, games, competitions, feasting. They want us to present a united front, showing the pack their strong Luna taking care of their weak alpha. Exactly. Kael moved closer, and Raven's breath hitched despite herself. They'd been careful to keep physical distance during their training, both aware of the mate bond pulling at them, both knowing that giving into it would complicate everything. But right now, with sweat still cooling on their skin and adrenaline singing through their veins, that distance felt impossible to maintain. "There's a traditional dance," Kael said quietly. "The alpha and his mate perform it together. It requires trust, synchronization, perfect harmony between partners. You want us to dance?" Raven's voice came out breathier than she intended. "I want us to show them what they expect to see." His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. A strong Luna supporting her weak mate. Except you, and I will know the truth. Every moment will be us in perfect balance, equal strength, equal partnership." His eyes darkened. "Can you do that? Can you pretend to support me while actually matching me step for step?" Raven's heart pounded. This close, she could smell his scent, pine and smoke, and something uniquely him. Her wolf urged her to close the distance, to claim their mate. "I can do that," she whispered. Kael's gaze dropped to her lips for a fraction of a second before he stepped back, breaking the spell. "Good. We'll practice tomorrow night. The dance is complicated." As Raven made her way back to her quarters through the secret tunnels Kael had shown her, her mind was spinning. She'd been here 2 weeks now, and every day she discovered something new about the man behind the mask. His intelligence, his patience, the steel core of determination that had allowed him to maintain this deception for 3 years. But she was also growing increasingly aware of the danger they were both in. Whoever had tried to kill Kael once wouldn't hesitate to try again if they suspected he was onto them. And now that Raven was involved, she'd made herself a target too. Back in her room, she found a note slipped under her door. Unfolding it, she read, "Meet me in the East Garden at midnight. Come alone. I have information about the Alpha's attack. A friend." Raven's instincts screamed trap. But if there was even a chance this was legitimate, she had to investigate. She glanced at the clock. 11:30. She had just enough time. The East Garden was deserted when Raven arrived, moonlight casting everything in silver and shadow. She'd come armed, a silver blade hidden in her boot, another strapped to her thigh beneath her dress. If this was a trap, she wouldn't go down easily. "You came." The voice emerged from the shadows, and a figure stepped into the moonlight. Raven's hand went to her hidden blade. "Who are you?" "Someone who wants to help." The speaker was young, maybe mid-20s, with nervous eyes and hands that trembled slightly. "My name is Kara. I'm Marius's niece." That got Raven's attention. "Why should I trust anything you tell me?" "Because my uncle is planning something terrible, and I can't stay silent anymore." Kara stepped closer, her fear evident. "He's the one who hired the rogues to attack Alpha Kael 3 years ago." Raven's blood ran cold. "You have proof." "I overheard him talking to Counselor Vera. They think because Kael seems weak, because you're here to manage him, that they can make their move soon." Kara's voice shook. "They're planning to challenge him at the Moon Festival, to call for a vote of no confidence in front of the entire pack. A vote won't kill him. No, but it will divide the pack. And in the chaos..." Kara met her eyes. "They'll make another attempt on his life. A real one this time. And they'll make sure it succeeds." Raven's mind raced. This was it, the concrete evidence Kael had been waiting for. But it also meant they had less than a week to prepare. "Why are you telling me this?" Raven asked. "He's your uncle. He's planning to kill our Alpha." Kara's voice broke. "I don't care if Kael is weak or strong. He's a good leader. He cares about this pack. My uncle only cares about power." She pulled a small recording device from her pocket. "I recorded their last conversation. It's all here. But I can't go to the Alpha directly. They're watching me too closely. I need you to." A sound behind them. Footsteps on gravel. They both turned as 3 large wolves emerged from the shadows, their eyes gleaming with predatory intent. "Kara," one of them growled, his voice distorted by the partial shift. "You really shouldn't have done that. Run." Kara shoved the recording device into Raven's hands. "Get that to the Alpha." The wolves attacked. Raven had her blade out instantly, slashing at the first attacker. Silver met flesh, and the wolf yelped, falling back. But there were 3 of them, and they were spreading out, trying to surround them. Kara shifted into her wolf form, smaller than the attackers, but fierce. She launched herself at the second wolf, giving Raven time to focus on the third. The fight was brutal and fast. Raven's training kicked in, her movements precise and deadly. But these weren't ordinary wolves. They were trained fighters, coordinated in their attack. One of them got past her guard, claws raking across her arm. Pain flared bright and hot, but Raven used the momentum, spinning into a strike that caught the wolf across the muzzle. A howl split the night, not from their attackers, but from somewhere close by. A howl of pure alpha dominance that made every wolf in the vicinity freeze instinctively. And then Kael was there. Not the careful, weakened Kael that the pack knew. This was the real alpha, moving with terrifying speed and power. He hit the first wolf like a freight train, taking it down in seconds. The second tried to run, but Kael was faster, catching it before it could escape. The third wolf, the one who'd been fighting Raven, took one look at the furious alpha and dropped to his belly in submission. Within minutes, all three attackers were subdued, bound with silver chains that burned their skin and prevented shifting. Kael turned to Raven, his eyes scanning her for injuries. When he saw the blood on her arm, his expression turned murderous. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "Kael, Kara has evidence. Marius and Vera, they're the ones behind everything." Kara, back in human form and naked as shifting always left them, trembled as she explained everything to Kael. He listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each word. "Where's the recording?" he asked when she finished. Raven held up the device. "Here." Kara saved it. Kael took it, his hands remarkably steady given the fury radiating from him. "Kara, you've done the right thing, and you've shown incredible courage." He looked at the three bound wolves. "Take them to the holding cells. No one speaks to them until I say otherwise." Pack warriors, drawn by the commotion, quickly obeyed. When they were gone, Kael finally let his alpha mask slip, exhaustion and anger warring in his expression. "They were going to kill you," he said to Raven, his voice rough. "If I hadn't heard you leave your room, if I hadn't followed you, but you did." Raven stepped closer, ignoring the pain in her arm. "You were watching over me. Always." The word was a vow, a promise. "From the moment I recognized you as my mate, Raven, I've been watching over you." The admission hung between them, heavy with meaning. This wasn't just about solving a conspiracy anymore. This was about two people who'd found each other against all odds, whose mate bond had proven stronger than deception and danger. "Let me see your arm," Kael said, his tone gentler now. Raven extended her injured arm, and Kael examined it carefully. The claws had cut deep, but not dangerously. It would heal, given time and proper treatment. "Come on," he said, wrapping his arm around her waist to support her. "Let's get you to the healer." "What about the recording? Marius and Vera? We'll wait until morning. Right now, you're hurt, and that takes priority." His eyes met hers, and in them she saw everything he wasn't saying. The fear he felt when he heard the fight. The relief that she was alive, the rage at those who dared to harm his mate. As they walked back to the pack house together, Raven leaned into his strength, letting herself accept the comfort he offered. Tomorrow they would deal with traitors and conspiracies. Tonight, she just wanted to be close to him. The pack healer had patched up Raven's arm with efficient competence, giving her a salve that would speed the healing. By morning, the wounds had already closed, leaving only faint pink lines that would fade within days. But the real healing happened that night, when Kael had stayed with her until dawn, sitting beside her bed, his hand wrapped around hers. They'd talked about everything and nothing, childhoods, dreams, fears they'd never voiced to anyone else. By the time the sun rose, something had shifted between them. The mate bond had been there from the first touch, but now it was deeper, strengthened by trust and genuine connection. Now, 3 days later, Raven stood in her quarters staring at the dress laid out on her bed. Deep blue silk that shimmered like moonlight on water, with silver embroidery that caught the light. The traditional dress for the Luna during the Moon Festival. "It's beautiful," Maya breathed, appearing in the doorway. The seamstresses outdid themselves. "It's perfect," Raven agreed. But her stomach was tight with nerves. Tonight, everything would come to a head. Kael had spent the past 3 days carefully reviewing Kara's recording, gathering additional evidence, and quietly ensuring his loyalists were in position. Tonight, during the Moon Festival, he would reveal the truth, all of it. The conspiracy, his true strength, everything. The pack would see their alpha as he truly was, and Marius and Vera would answer for their crimes. But first, there was the dance. "I can't believe you and the Alpha are performing the traditional mate dance," Maya gushed, helping Raven into the dress. "No Alpha has performed it in decades. It's supposed to be incredibly difficult." "So I've heard," Raven said dryly. She and Kael had practiced every night, and Maya was right. It was incredibly difficult. The dance required perfect synchronization, absolute trust, and a level of physical coordination that most mates couldn't achieve. But she and Kael had something most mates didn't. They were both warriors, both trained in movement and combat. And they had the truth between them. No lies, no deceptions, just pure partnership. There, Maya stepped back, admiring her work. "You look like a Luna." Raven studied her reflection. The dress accentuated her athletic build rather than hiding it, the deep blue bringing out the silver in her eyes. Her dark hair was pulled back in an intricate braid woven with silver thread. She looked like someone who could stand beside an Alpha as an equal. Not behind him, not propping him up, but beside him in perfect balance. "Thank you, Maya," Raven said sincerely. The festival grounds were transformed. Thousands of lights hung from the trees, casting everything in warm, golden light. Long tables groaned under the weight of food, roasted meats, fresh bread, fruits, and sweets. Pack members milled about in their finest clothes, laughing and celebrating. At the center of it all was a cleared space, the dancing ground, where the traditional mate dance would be performed. Raven found Kael near the head table. He was in his wheelchair still, wearing formal Alpha attire, a deep gray suit that somehow made his eyes seem even more intense. When he saw her, his breath audibly caught. "Raven," he said softly, "you're stunning. You clean up pretty well yourself," she replied, fighting the urge to reach for him. The council approached, Marius at the forefront with his practiced smile. "Alpha, Raven, everything is prepared for the dance. The pack is eager to witness it." "I'm sure they are," Kael said, his tone mild. But Raven caught the steel underneath. Tonight. It would all happen tonight. The feast began with traditional ceremonies, blessing the food, honoring the moon, celebrating the pack's unity. Raven sat at the head table beside Kael, hyper-aware of his presence, of the way his hand occasionally brushed against hers beneath the table. Across from them, Marius and Vera appeared confident, relaxed. They had no idea what was coming. Finally, as the meal concluded and the pack settled in for the entertainment portion of the evening, Elder Marius stood. "Tonight," he announced, his voice carrying across the grounds, "we have a special treat. Our Alpha and his potential mate will perform the traditional dance of bonding, a dance that hasn't been performed in over 50 years. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, excitement, curiosity, even some skepticism. The dance was legendary, but also legendarily difficult. Many wondered if a weakened Alpha could even complete it. "Alpha Kael," Marius continued, "if you and Raven would take your positions." This was it. Raven stood, moving to the center of the dancing ground. Around them, the pack formed a circle, watching with eager anticipation. Kael remained in his wheelchair for a moment longer. Then, with deliberate slowness, he stood. The crowd gasped. Some had seen him stand before, had seen him take careful, pained steps. But tonight was different. Tonight, Kael didn't hunch his shoulders. He didn't move with careful hesitation. He stood straight and tall, every inch the powerful Alpha he'd always been. And then he walked to Raven with fluid, confident grace that made the crowd's gasps turn to confused murmurs. "What?" Marius began, but Kael ignored him. The traditional music began, drums and flutes in an ancient rhythm. Kael took Raven's hand, and that familiar spark flared between them. "Ready?" he murmured. "Always," she replied. The dance began. It was part combat, part poetry. They moved in perfect synchronization, Kael leading and Raven following. Then reversing, Raven leading and Kael following. Spins and lifts that required immense strength and absolute trust. At one point, Kael lifted Raven high above his head with one arm, a move that should have been impossible for a weakened Alpha. The pack watched in stunned silence as their Alpha and his mate moved together like water, like wind, like two parts of a whole that had always been meant to find each other. The dance built to its climax, a series of complex movements that required Kael to catch Raven mid-leap, spin her, and lower her into a deep dip that ended with their faces inches apart, both breathing hard, eyes locked. The music ended. For a heartbeat, the world was silent. Then the pack erupted in cheers and applause, the sound deafening. But Raven's attention was on Kael. On the way, he was looking at her like she was the only thing in his world that mattered. "I love you," he said, the words just for her, barely audible over the celebration. "I didn't mean for it to happen, not this fast, but I love you, Raven." Her heart soared. "I love you too." He kissed her then, in front of the entire pack, claiming her as his in the most public way possible. The crowd's cheers grew even louder. When they finally broke apart, Raven was dizzy with joy and adrenaline. But there was still one more thing to do. Kael turned to face the pack, keeping Raven's hand firmly in his. The cheers slowly died down as pack members sensed something was about to happen. "My pack," Kael said, his alpha voice carrying effortlessly across the grounds. "Tonight, you've seen me dance with strength I supposedly lost 3 years ago. I imagine you're confused. Concerned, perhaps. Allow me to explain." The crowd was utterly silent now. 3 years ago, I was attacked by rogues who had been hired to kill me. I survived, but I realized something crucial. I didn't know who had hired them. Someone in my inner circle, someone I trusted, wanted me dead. His expression hardened. So I made a choice. I pretended the attack had weakened me. I pretended to be diminished, vulnerable, and I waited to see who would reveal themselves. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Raven could see understanding dawning on some faces, shock on others. Tonight, the wait ends. Kael's eyes found Marius and Vera, who had gone pale. "Elder Marius, Counselor Vera, you are both under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, treason against your alpha, and attempted assassination." "This is insane," Marius blustered, surging to his feet. "You have no proof." "Actually," Kael pulled out the recording device. "I have plenty of proof, including a detailed recording of you and Vera planning not only my original assassination, but a second attempt, courtesy of your niece, Kara, who proved far braver and more loyal than you ever were." Pack warriors moved in, surrounding Marius and Vera. The two council members looked around wildly, seeking escape or support, but found neither. "You think this changes anything?" Vera spat, her composure cracking. "You're weak, Kael. You always have been. Pretending to be strong doesn't." "I'm not pretending anything," Kael interrupted coldly. "Not anymore. The only pretending I did was acting weak for 3 years to catch traitors like you." As the warriors led Marius and Vera away, Kael addressed the pack once more. "I apologize for the deception," he said, his voice gentler now. "I hated lying to you, to all of you. But it was necessary to protect our pack from those who would harm it. From tonight forward, no more lies. No more pretending. You'll have your alpha as he truly is, strong, committed to this pack, and with his mate by his side." He squeezed Raven's hand, and she stepped forward to stand beside him. "This is Raven Ashworth," Kael continued. "My mate, my equal. If you'll have her, she will be your Luna." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Howls of acceptance and celebration that filled the night air. Pack members shifted into wolf form, their howls joining together in a chorus of unity and joy. Raven felt tears prick her eyes. She'd come here expecting to find a weak alpha who needed her strength. Instead, she'd found a partner, a mate, and a pack that she could genuinely call home. As the festival continued around them, Kael pulled her close, and they swayed together to music only they could hear. "No more pretending?" Raven asked. "No more pretending," Kael confirmed. "From now on, everything is real." And as she looked up at her mate, at the alpha who had tested his pack and found his true partner in the process, Raven knew that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Raven stood on the balcony of the alpha's quarters, their quarters now, watching the sun rise over Blackwood Pack territory. In the distance, pack members were already starting their day, heading to training or work or simply enjoying the early morning. Everything had changed in the past 6 months. The trials of Marius and Vera had revealed a conspiracy even deeper than they'd initially suspected. For other pack members had been involved, all arrested and exiled. The council had been restructured with members Kael trusted, wolves who had proven their loyalty through action rather than just words. Kara had been rewarded for her bravery, given a position of honor in the pack and Kael's personal protection. She'd flourished under the recognition, becoming one of Raven's closest friends. And Raven herself had been officially accepted as Luna 3 months ago, in a ceremony that had brought tears to her eyes. The pack had embraced her completely, seeing in her not just strength, but genuine care for them all. Arms wrapped around her waist from behind, and Kael's chin came to rest on her shoulder. "You're up early. Couldn't sleep." She leaned back into his warmth. Too excited about today. Today, her family was arriving for a visit. Her brother the Alpha, her parents, her younger sister. They'd been cautious at first, worried about her mating to an Alpha they didn't know. But Kael had won them over with patience and genuine affection for Raven. Nervous about them meeting the pack, Kael asked, "A little. My brother can be intense about pack protocol." Kael laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest into her back. "I think we can handle intense." They stood there together, watching the day begin, and Raven marveled at how much her life had transformed. She'd come here expecting one thing and found something infinitely better. "Hey," Kael said softly, turning her to face him. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. The real me. For not being fooled by the act, but also for understanding why the act was necessary." His gray eyes were warm, full of love that still made her breath catch. "For being my partner in every sense of the word. Always," Raven promised, echoing the vow they'd made to each other. He kissed her, slow and deep, a kiss that spoke of love and trust and a future they would build together. When they finally broke apart, the sun had fully risen, painting the world in gold and promise. "Come on," Raven said, taking his hand. "We have a pact to run and family to prepare for." "And tonight?" Kael asked, that familiar playful gleam in his eyes. "Tonight, we can sneak away to our secret training room and spar until we're both exhausted. It's a date." Hand in hand, the Alpha and his Luna headed inside to begin their day. No more pretending, no more tests, no more lies. Just two mates, equal in strength and love, ready to face whatever challenges came their way. Together. The end. Welcome to Panium Unbound Realm Sparkles, where love transcends the moonlight and alphas meet their match. Wolfface subscribe for weekly werewolf romance stories. Dizzy hit the notification bell so you never miss when I post speech balloon. Comment which chapter was your favorite. Thumbs up, like, if you want more of my story. Outbox Dre, share with your besties who need this. This is your moonbound realm for paranormal romance, fated mates, and alphas who will make you feral. Join the pack and let's escape reality together. Crescent Moon next story drops. What trope should I do next? Comment below.